a Facebook update. So it looks like something broke on streaming to Facebook, so maybe we might not go to Facebook anymore.
Really?
That was where it all started. Facebook was the first place we streamed.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's still in there, but for some reason I can only select my personal account. I can't go into the pages that I'm manager of.
Hey, I tell you what, man, Facebook's move fast and break things is very true.
Yeah.
They just constantly change stuff for no reason I can tell that just breaks everything.
Yep. Yeah. Well, luckily, unlike yesterday, doing it from home, it doesn't look like anything's broken yet. So round two for all you lovely people out there who tuned in yesterday, you're gonna get a little bit of deja vu. But today we're essentially gonna talk about the same stuff.
Fortunately, we only got like 10 or 15 minutes in, so.
Yeah. Luckily, and 5 of those were Gordon troubleshooting his webcam. So this will be fun. But I'm still wearing. I was like, you know what? I'm still gonna wear my new friend of the show shirt. And Lindsay was like, "Don't you think people are gonna notice you're wearing the same shirt as yesterday?" I was like, "Oh, well, you know, I gotta show it off."
actually wanted to. I really wanted to wear my Lebowski shirt because I realized. I don't even know if there's any actual Big Lebowski fans. I realized this morning that I'm Donnie.
Oh yeah.
No,
yeah,
I'm serious.
You're definitely Donnie.
No, but seriously, man, I was gonna send a tweet out to Will Smith because we've had just all kinds of like Big Lebowski jokes, but I was like, you know, it's like I woke up at 7:00 in the morning. You know, the dog wakes me up to feed him, and there's that AMD news. And then I walk into the kitchen, you know, my wife is talking to my kids about whatever schedule. I hear something and I ask something. And she's just really, can we use bad? Well, we can't use harsh language here. She's basically, and then she just usually says like, basically it's exactly like how Walter talks to Donnie all the time whenever Donnie says something. And I realized like, you never realize it, but now I'm realizing I have no idea what's going on. There's a whole conversation, and I'm like, so I want to, but I like, stop, catch me up on this, right? And she totally does the, you know, shut the F up, Donnie.
Okay. Well, that's it. You're officially part of the.
I need to get in your will to get your ashes to the ocean.
Man, so I would show you my ID. Where's my ID? I'm gonna go get my ID card. Well, you don't have your heart out, do you? Like I gotta show I gotta show you the.
You're gonna show your ID card? Oh well, I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna. Wow, this is. You know what? Maybe it's not deja vu. This is not what we did yesterday at all. So, people are getting some fun stuff. But it's raining. It still is raining here in San Francisco. So, hopefully the building power is fine. Is it raining over at your place,
also,
Brad?
check out my Wayland Yutani jacket. That's official.
Nice.
Company man.
Man, you're really whipping out your wallet.
I'm busting out. No, seriously,
wallet,
check
man.
this out. I bust out the wallet, and it's all worn out because it's, you know. But look, check out. This is my ID. There's no way to show this.
I mean,
as a close up, but. So this is the ID that whenever I get pulled over by the police, I show them this ID. Can you? Yeah. See
How
that?
often do you get pulled over?
Well, you know, this is all I have to show. I don't have to show anything else. This is it. I know my rights, man. I know my rights. And for audio listeners, I just flashed a Ralph's Value Club card with the name on it. This is Jeffrey Lebowski, because that is the coolest thing ever. And yeah, we're going all into the Big Lebowski fan stuff now.
All right, hopefully I got the camera back to where it was. All right, fun times. Here we go. Nice. Yeah, we're going to talk about the same stuff, right? Apple news. People have been chomping at the bit to hear what Gordon has to say about Apple. You know, I made that joke on Discord that we're switching to the full Mac presented by Macworld. But you know what? That Tim Cook cut my power yesterday, so we're not going to make that joke today.
You think he did?
I think it was
He
Tim
heard
Cook.
you.
Yeah, he was outdoor. He was like, "Don't you? Oh, crap." You know,
He did it with his Elvis leg shake, though. You noticed that? I never noticed that before until that last video. But if you go and watch the keynote Tim Cook will shake his leg like Elvis.
Oh, also Matthew Lang, Ridge Wallet here. Yep, Ridge Wallet. That's how I roll. All right.
Thank you. Before we get started, if Byron is here, thank you for yesterday. Your generous donation is powering our electricity today.
Yes, I did see that, man. Oh, so then, yeah, my power went out, and I was just sitting there, just at my PC, like, oh, I can't even end the stream. Wait, I don't have internet. And then the cell coverage was crap too, so I wasn't able to get on. Luckily, Elena was able to go on and kill the stream. But yeah, there was people still in there chatting. Fun times. Thank you. Sorry, it was fun. But yeah, no more power.
Like an old AOL chat room. It was great.
Yeah. Get on BBC. All right, cool. Gordon, are you ready to roll?
Yeah, I saw this junk off the desk. I don't know.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, I don't have the prompter set up, so I'm gonna have to read the the little ad read here. So, I think you ready, Gordon? I'm gonna pull that and be ready here. This episode of The Full Nerd is sponsored by Avast. Avast has been a global leader in cybersecurity for more than 30 years and is trusted by over 435 million users. Avast One is their best protection yet, giving you everything you need to take control of your safety and privacy online, and it's accessible. I keep messing that up. And it's accessible through a single, easy-to-use interface. A free version includes essential features such as free antivirus, free VPN, and free firewall protection, while the premium version has even more advanced features. Learn more about Avast One at avast.com.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, Mad Max Max and Windows 11 and Ryzen is no bueno.
And I hit the wrong button.
Welcome to episode 194 of The Full Nerd. I'm your host, Gordon Mong, with co-host Brad Charkis.
Hello, Internet.
Adam Patrick Murray is controlling the vertical and horizontal.
Oh, for the audio listeners who don't know, yesterday, we did this yesterday. We're in deja vu. Are we in the Matrix? We're doing this again. We actually did like 10 minutes of a show from home, an all remote show, and then my power cut out. So that was fun. We're doing it again the next day from the studio, and luckily we didn't get too far, so we're not going to dig too deep into what we'd already talked about. But I will say, I'm going to say it again, if you want to get the new Full Nerd merch, like check this out. It says, "Hello, I'm a friend of the show." You too can be a friend of the show. Go over to our CrowdMade. There's a link in the description. I'll pin it in the chat here. You can get this awesome shirt. Also, I didn't show this off yesterday, but I game at 19 by 10. So this is the front of the shirt, just standard Full Nerd, and then the back of the shirt is I game at 19 by 10. You're gonna show all the cool kids that you game at that pixel resolution.
You think people would really be confused by that?
Yes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I have been. So yeah, they're gonna be like, wait, what is that? What are you saying? Is that an aspect ratio? I don't know.
It's just funny.
It's old DOS. You stick to DOS games.
Aspect ratio is colon. If it were 16:10, that's aspect ratio.
I know, but shorthand is usually 16 by 9, 4 by 3. It's usually an X.
No one would ever do 16x10 or 16.
I use that all the time. Yeah.
Look, I can show you proof of when Anon and Kyle, and this is the old days. Thomas Paps, everybody would abbreviate 1920 by 1080 as 19 by 10. That was just what you did in the 1990s. Okay, ain't nobody ever put 16 by 9. It's just like X. That's not real. You're making that up.
I just put 1080p or whatever.
Yeah, you can do that. Or HD, FHD, QHD.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
I haven't touched a 1080p monitor in probably 6 years at this point, so I can't be seen with that mug, but I'm probably going to pick up one of those shirts because I like them.
Yeah, so for we got the two new designs, and they both come in shirts and mugs, and then I showed this off yesterday. Dang it, I didn't grab it again. Limited edition pins. We got a full nerd enamel pin. I think we have 100 of them. and then they're all gone. So get this as a little bonus add-on. You can pin it to anything you want. And actually, it has the nice GPU design on the card too, which is pretty cool.
Maybe I'll have to get one of those as well.
Yeah, we got stickers. We're rolling out. Yeah, and yeah, we have a couple new designs that I'm still working on. Smooth 30 and I can't remember the other one, so it'll come later. But this is the holiday push. Trying to also make maybe a ugly Christmas sweater or something.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe. I'll see. CrowdMade had asked like, hey, we usually do a big ugly Christmas sweater thing. Do you want to participate? And I was like, oh yeah, maybe. I just need to figure it out. So.
Be
Anyway.
Quiet sent me theirs from last year, and they have the best ugly Christmas sweater I've ever seen. I'll wear it on the show.
I got one too. I've been waiting just for this Christmas to wear the
crap.
Be Quiet ugly. After I saw Ian with one, I was like, oh my god.
Well, now I'm jealous. I'm gonna.
Of course, all the nerds were like, "Oh, well, let's talk about cache latency, core." Like, why is nobody asking where you get that sweater?
Well, you know what doesn't come with a sweater is a new laptop. You have to buy that separate. I don't know about you, Gordon, but Apple just had their big presentation to
was
show
there something new from Apple.
Yeah, new CPUs and new laptops. According to this Apple video marketing, I feel embarrassed for even using a Windows laptop. They just pooped all over a Windows laptop. How could you even go out in the streets now with a Windows laptop, Gordon? Now that you've seen these new ones.
Yeah, it's really funny because I actually, I having lived through this already once in the last 6 months, it's just like my attitude was really, you know what? Come on, this just was the point. Ain't no one ever gonna switch, right? Because it's just like, it's just no one's ever gonna switch from Windows to Mac or from Mac to Windows in any meaningful number, no matter what the performance is, because it's just what your team is. That's what your team is, right? You use Nikon. You're not going to switch to Canon next week just for fun. You're not going to. Ford doesn't buy Chevy. Let's just all calm down and don't engage in the Twitter wars and the yelling at each other. But
it's more than your team. Like that's like a legit workflow. Like if you're used to using a Mac, going to Windows is different.
No,
So,
and they are. I mean, that's the thing.
vice versa.
They're definitely. They are like your team, but they're also, let's be honest, they are just stuff a company wants you to pay money for. They just want your money. So don't get too invested. In fact, I would be perfectly happy with somebody on a PC who goes like, yeah, I really like this new M1 Max Pro, whatever. I'm going to buy one. Oh, great. If that works for you, go ahead, do it. That's more power to you. It's your money. I can't tell you how to spend it. I would say that. In fact, I just said that. That's what I think. But I think what really makes statements like that, like, oh, let's just try to be calm about it. You can't, because people are just so in your face. And right, because I will tell you, when I took some Acer $600 Ryzen laptop that kicked the holy crap out of a $3,000 MacBook Pro, right? And it's like, it just like was slaughtered, because clearly, you're looking at old Intel versus brand new Ryzen. It just got smacked up and down. It's over, right? Why would you ever buy this Mac Pro based on the performance numbers? But no one ever bought that Acer $700 laptop instead of that $3,000 Mac Pro, because they're just not going to. There's other reasons for it, and they're not going to switch. They're not going to change their workflow.
You know what though? I will say people switch. I was somebody who switched. I had PCs.
Yeah.
I had an E-machine. I had a ThinkPad. I had a Compaq. And then when I got into school, they were like, "Hey, in school you get a free MacBook Pro, or it's not free. You're paying for school, whatever." So I was a Mac person for many years as a creative professional, and then I got kicked in the groin too many times.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I'm going to switch back. So I've actually switched twice. I've switched twice.
Yeah, and to me, it's just like you buy whatever's good for you. But I think the thing that kind of gets me not want to get engaged is just the idiot Twitter battles. But then, of course, I had to go look at what people were saying. These are actual screen grabs of what people have said in public based on basically, marketing presentation, and, maybe one leaked benchmark. It's always Geekbench, of course, because you can still leak it on Geekbench despite what people think.
Yeah.
This person, you don't want to name them, but let's just say they said Apple : releases M1 Pro/Max chips with ridiculous levels of performance and efficiency. Toxic PCMR fanboys. And then it shows the GIF of somebody holding their fingers in their ear. Of course. Another one is Apple releases M1 Pro and M1 Max. And then the other one is Intel : dead inside, right? Intel logo with the dead inside.
That's kind of funny, actually.
This one, and I should have given you this ahead of time so you could show them. This one is Intel and AMD after M1 Pro and M1 Max be like, period. And it's a person is sitting in a coffin on a laptop, looks like a Mac actually, and then afterwards lying down to die because clearly there is no point for Intel and AMD to even exist now because of the M1 Pro and M1 Max. This other person is Tim : launches M1 Pro/Max, quote, PC market crashes and Tim laughing is the picture, having a good time. Actually, it turns out that picture is from Tim like, how much did we make? Off of a polishing cloth? That was a joke. That was an April Fool's joke.
$19 polishing cloth that is sold out for months.
I can't believe like the polishing cloth that Apple will sell Mac fans for $19 will actually they will actually have to report that to Wall Street because that will materially probably change their what explains this 5% bump? Well, Apple fans buying a polishing cloth for $19, not the M1 Pro or Max. This other person, M1 Pro/Max versus Intel benchmarks are looking like I don't even understand this reference, Germany versus Brazil semifinal in 2014. Can anybody? Is that some kind of volleyball thing?
No, I think it's soccer.
Soccer, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't.
I'm an American football kind of guy.
I don't get it. I don't understand that one. But I guess that's funny. There's actually, sadly, that's in America. There were no responses because people didn't like. I don't understand. Was Brazil in the? Were they in the Super Bowl that year? I don't. And this last one kind of kills. This one. This one. Yes, I love this one. Calling it now. When Apple shows off the Apple Silicon Mac Pro in a year, they'll have an RTX 3090 on their little vague graphs, period, and the Mac will beat it. And then, of course, later on in response, just showing how tight in the crowd is, it will beat an RTX 3090 laptop graphics card, which literally has almost the same performance of an RTX 3080 PC graphics card. Let me read that for you again. It will beat an RTX 3090 laptop graphics card.
Oh, yeah, we got those.
Which literally almost has the same performance of an RTX 3080 PC graphics card.
Wait.
Those don't exist.
Yeah, actually somebody pointed out. It's like, there is no 3090 mobile GPU? Response, I swear I saw one.
I swear I saw one. Hey, I swear I saw one.
They really said that in response to that. And I have one more.
Okay.
This one, because this one kind of. Oh wait, actually I had two more, but that's. Oh boy, it's really wild. Intel might never catch up again.
Might never.
This one really hurts though. This one really hurts because it was actually someone that we know. I'm not going to say because I'm not reading any of it. But I'm reading it out loud, so I hope through the internet the person's ears burn.
Ooh.
And then, honestly, I feel bad for PC laptop OEMs right now. They literally can't compete with what Apple can roll out right now, period, and may not be able to do so for years.
Wow. All right. Yeah, that's serious. Like I said, I'm embarrassed. Just kidding. I'm not. But we do have somebody in the chat.
Oh.
$5 super chat from Clayton 006. Not quite 007. Thank you so much for the super chat. Said, I got a 64 gigabyte. Oh. What? Oh, 64 gig RAM, 8 terabyte, 16 core Mac Pro on order, but I won't get rid of my Alienware X17 with a 3080 or my desktops. I use both platforms, so I get into battles. And I mean, honestly, That's the funny stuff. We actually have a lot of people in the chat who use both. I actually still use both. I still prefer a Mac for audio editing. But I mean, Gordon, you test both as well.
Well, the good news is, if you really want to get a feel for Mac OS, you could just upgrade to Windows 11 these days. Not even have to buy a new laptop.
But
It does have the start menu moved in the middle, so that the 90% of the world that has never done it that way for 20 years. So we can make those people feel better, I think is the
yeah. Well,
I tell you what. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we're dancing around it a little bit. We should get to what they actually announced, even though it is fun to rag on it. We should get to the actual hard details.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think
the internet. You don't have to actually have any facts.
Just in case, people. There's plenty of Windows people that didn't watch the Apple thing. So at least, hey, it's. We should talk about it. And what does it mean for the PC space? Not hyperbole, but No,
and I think the thing that would make it okay to talk about this normally, except it never ever is just a normal conversation, is that it's going to be something good. It's good. One, competition's always good.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody likes monopolies. Monopolies make people lazy. They don't do anything. Doesn't really serve consumers. So it is actually it's a good thing to have Apple make this new M1 Pro, M1 Max. I'm trying to get it right. But they basically announced a MacBook Pro 14, MacBook Pro 16, also new M1s. They're basically, upscaled more core, like an 8 big cores, 2 little core versions. And then also for the GPUs where they put a lot of their energy, they have basically a 32 EU. I don't even know what they're calling it. 32 graphic core. They're calling them cores, right? 32 core graphics, and they have a 16, and I think there may have been one a little scaled down. There's also another cutoff 6-core one that they're doing in sort of for the people in the cheap seats. Basically, performance. They're claiming one, they crush Tiger Lake H. They're claiming they're crushing them, and also doing so at maybe 70% power. I don't have the in front of me. It's a pretty impressive amount of power. They're saying. They don't 70%. Say how they tested exactly. More impressively is, although, I mean, it is impressive, but it isn't impressive, I think, in some ways. They're saying that the very top end M1 Max will slightly outperform a Razer Blade 15 Advanced Edition with a Tiger Lake and a GeForce RTX 3080 laptop. Clearly, it's a lower TDP version because it's a thin and light. They're saying that their graphics core will slightly outperform it, but will kick its butt in power consumption. And then they actually say like, well, look, we're not as fast as a GeForce RTX 3080 laptop in a big laptop, an MSI GE76 Raider, but we use way less energy. So, and especially on battery, they sort of stress like we can still push out a decent amount of performance on battery. But the fact that they're actually saying we're not really faster than 3080 is kind of interesting to me because they're admitting whatever tests they're using that they're not faster. And
this is integrated graphics.
But what? It's not integrated. That's
no, it's ish. It's all one big weird system. It's really cool the way they built that chip, actually. But
no, it is really cool. That's why I think that the sad thing is nobody can have just an honest discussion without somebody saying, "Oh man, yeah, Warriors suck this season." It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be an a-hole about everything. Can we just have an honest talk about it? But you can't. Everybody's got to be an a-hole about everything now. I think it's a really cool part. To be honest, it's really neat.
Yeah,
impressive. It's got this weird ass notch. But you can probably live with it. It's not a deal breaker. I think. And, they have a 1080p camera finally. They finally do that, and they put ports on the damn thing.
I mean, really. Yeah. I mean, I know we're talking about the CPU stuff. We should keep going to that, but really, for me, that was the big thing. Of just like to be like, hey, you know what? You know what's awesome? Function keys. you know what? We got those, almost like they invented them. And then they were like, you know what? MagSafe 3, like, like we didn't discontinue it. It's just, this is the third one. This is the next one. We've been working on it. Also, hey, you want ports? HDMI, SD card, wow, okay. We'll give you some ports. It's just like, I never expected such a backstep. And really, I know a lot of professionals in my space who use the Mac all the time. And they were talking about it or reaching out to me for advice of like, hey, this M1 stuff, I need a new laptop. Should I stick with Intel? Should I go with an M1? And I just like, man, for the past 3-4 years, especially when they take out all the ports and they've just been adding the touch bar and stuff like that, it's been hard. I'm like, I'm sorry, this, you're getting kind of, choke point, right? I mean, that's the thing. Apple always has limited options, and that's why I love the PC, because you have so many different options to tailor it the way you want. Anyway, my point is, all those people who've been getting Macs in the past couple years just totally got hosed. You're talking about, spending thousands of dollars on a laptop, and then they're like, oh, you know what? All those things that you wanted when you bought it, we're putting them back.
That's true, but I made this point yesterday during our boarded attempt, but I want to say it again. I think it's worth pointing out when companies do listen to feedback, however, because all of that was feedback that everyone's been giving them. What the heck are you doing? This is supposed to be a pro machine. This is not a pro machine because it's missing all this stuff. And I'm glad that they're putting it back in.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm, as again, like when they gave up on that just absolutely miserable butterfly keyboard and said, you know what, these things suck. And we're going to put our we are known for, they put a good keyboard in. I think that, frankly, was a great move. And anytime the company does the right thing, they should be given a pat on the back. Some people still
but I mean, it's still a little late. I'm just going to say it's a little late,
I
people have been screaming about it for a while.
But, it's fine. But you gotta give them credit for doing it. And then that stupid touch bar, it's just like they got rid of that. And it's like, I think the lousy thing about ditching the touch bar is like, it's actually kind of cool because it's taken years and years for developers to actually add support for it now. But now you're going to like throw it overboard. And it's just like, what? I don't.
Well, it's still on the
how it happens in Macs,
the lower end ones. Yeah. I mean, whatever.
I want to go back to the GPU.
Please. Yes.
I want to point out these look super awesome. And just based on what Apple has shown in the past versus backing it up, I expect these to be very badass parts. I just want to point out, as I always do, be careful when you're reading these graphs because they do look awesome. Like for the M1 Max, or is it the M1 Max? The M1 Max, they say, uses 70% less power than discrete PC graphics. That's the M1 Pro. An RTX 3050 Ti, same amount of performance, 70% less power. They say something similar with the 3080, and they say the M1 Max uses 100 watts less power. But those are very weird graphs. They don't exactly say what they're measuring. It's all relative performance. Like, take big pinches of salt with those. And two, whenever you see companies, NVIDIA and AMD have both done this in the past as well, talking about power efficiency like that, that doesn't mean that's what you'll actually see in the actual product, because they're showing performance at the same power level. And that's not necessarily the final clock level for it. So like when the first gen Navi parts came out, AMD was talking up its efficiency because Navi, was a big step forward for them with that in their initial architecture graphs. But in the end result, to make it compete, they actually had to crank the clock super high, which made that efficiency not quite as impressive in the real world. So these chips look awesome. Take all those vendor supplied graphs with a big pinch of salt, as always. I just want to throw that out there. I do think these parts are going to be awesome, but don't think it's going to be like blowing the RTX 3080 out of the water that bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, but it feels like that is part of the strategy because when the M1 launched, because expectations of an ARM-based part were sort of like, Qualcomm level, like, oh my God, you're like, why are you going to try? We've seen these things that have been horrible. Like ARM is like, yeah, we're rebranding ourselves to something else to get away from what these Qualcomm parts on Windows are. But when M1 came out, I was like, wow, this is actually a really good part. It's actually very impressive and everything you would expect of a $1 trillion company paying TSMC for their absolute best part. It's like, it's really good. But I think my problem with that initial narrative is it just got away because all of the mainstream tech press immediately said it's over. Everybody like this is it. Nobody exists anymore because the M1 is so much faster. People still think the M1 is faster than anything AMD or Intel make. And that is simply not true. That is simply not true. Hell, I was just like, I literally ran an Excel benchmark the other day. Excel on Mac, Excel on PC. It's an old benchmark. It's a calculation benchmark, but it's something that's been around for a long time. And the Tiger Lake UP3 was faster than the Mac by 10%. Right? This is all in AC, but whatever. It was faster by 10%. And it was native Excel on Mac M1, and of course obviously it's native for PC, but like if I told that to somebody who they would not believe it because they are absolutely convinced there is nothing faster than the M1. And once you sort of set that narrative and it's out there, it just sort of ripples out and everybody thinks like, oh my God, there's nothing faster in the world. It's like, that's not true. That's just simply not true, right? That doesn't mean it's a crappy part, but it's not faster than everything in the world. But it's sort of the same thing now is you get out ahead of everybody. You get all the fanboys out on Twitter kind of like, oh my God, it's over, and then that's set in place for 6 months and then nobody believes anything opposite. Hell, the 3080 is already faster than what they have, right? Consumes considerably more power, and that's where you should give them credit for. But it just kills me that we're going to see the exact same thing happen again, and they're going to run away with the narrative, and then all of the tech press who they all basically are Mac people anyway, they will just simply ignore the actual facts, which is there are some demonstrable things where AMD existing parts and Intel existing parts are faster, and NVIDIA. So, but
we'll have to see. We'll have to see. These could be pretty smoking parts, man.
They're going to be
we'll
awesome
have to see
parts.
How it winds up.
They're going to be. I mean, they're going to be awesome parts.
Once again, it always depends on what you do, because I mean, there's people obviously saying in the chat of like, okay, well, what are the benchmarks going to be for games? Oh wait,
yeah,
like,
they're going to be.
You know what I mean, right? So it's like it's faster. Where is it faster? What is it faster doing?
Speaking of that, I think it's worth pointing out. Like we're focusing on the CPU and the GPU, but Apple also improved their media engine, and now it can do hardware accelerated decoding and encoding of ProRes and ProRes RAW.
Yeah.
So considering that content creators and video photographers and stuff like that love Macs, like that's a great fit for that audience. I think
that it's nice.
Yeah. No. If I were you, if I were to put my money, and I think like, well, who is going to win? Definitely, there's going to be some premier battles here, and I wouldn't put money on either side, but I'd probably lean toward Mac. Right? They're really gonna certain things that you do in Premiere, and especially Final Cut.
Once again, certain things.
That's
right?
what I mean.
It's all workload based. But
I mean,
really depends on what you do.
It is, and that's one thing people need to realize. But I still think it's going to be the things that it is optimized for, like Final Cut. Right? They still keep Final Cut from going into the grave because it sort of demonstrates that they. I don't know. Maybe it's just to scare Adobe or something like that. But Final Cut is just going to smoke because it's always smoke because it's that and it's something that needs to be said that it is you get Apple, you get Apple logo, you get Apple laptop, you get Apple software, you get Apple made application. It's going to be awesome, right? So
and that's I think one of the benefits of Apple creating its own chips that people overlook. I mean, they know that content creators and professional video people love Macs. So they can actually throw a bunch of effort and time and attention into upgrading their media engine to this. Whereas if they were working with Intel in the past and stuff like that, it's a little harder to be in control of your own hardware destiny and focus on the stuff that matters to you. So I think that's a cool part about the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. Well, the same with that neural engine. They do a lot of cool stuff with that. I mean, Tiger Lake, I'm sure AMD in the future is also building in AI machine learning kind of stuff, but it's clear that Apple's really devoting a lot of time and attention to it, and you couldn't get that unless you're making your own parts. So there are good things there.
Yeah, I'll say for the creative professional like myself, Apple has definitely been leaving us pros behind. I've always felt like the past 5 years, those laptops that they've been making haven't been with pros in mind, and I think either sales were down, something hit them enough to be like, okay, we need to turn this around. Like we need to actually upgrade the laptop. the ports, the screen, the function keys, all that kind of stuff. Because like they've been slowly getting away from it, and I think they lost those evangelists. I know plenty of people who have moved over to Windows.
Yeah.
I mean, and myself included, right? If they would have stuck down that pro route, who knows? Maybe I still would be on Mac, but I'm not. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I think something happened on the back end, and they were just like, oh crap, we're hemorrhaging people, we're losing the narrative, we got to bring it back.
And it's unfortunate because Apple always wants to maintain, supreme. They always want to be the person behind the curtain in the Wizard of Oz because they don't want the truth to be known. But it would be interesting to see if at some point, let's just give up. You do wonder because it felt like at a certain point with MacBooks, and they're just like, why are we even bothering to do this? Right?
It's just like a spec bump every year. It's just a real.
Well, and they would always do it behind everybody, and then they would always do things like they would always pick. I mean, clearly, NVIDIA has gotten they've had CUDA support in Adobe products for a long time. They have the lead. Apple chose Radeon, right? And it always kind of put them at. And they would even do things like, look, PC content creator laptops, they have 180 watt power bricks, right? You're intentionally hobbling the MacBook Pro by using an 87 watt power supply, right? Because that means, and you have a shell so thin you can't put anything else in it. It's like they made the hardware for basically the M1 Pro 7 years before they ever could make the M1 Pro, right? That was their vision, but they never got there. So now they're obviously sort of like, they're like, yeah, we need to make our own chips because it doesn't meet what Intel is making, what AMD is making doesn't meet our vision of the future. So they're doing this now,
which makes sense. I think, I mean, it took them that long to get on their own platform to really control their own destiny. That's what they love doing. So yeah.
And I can see why they like doing it. The reason they don't use NVIDIA is Bumpgate. Ever since Bumpgate happened, NVIDIA has been blacklisted from. You can shake your head, you can say all that. That's 100% true.
It's true.
And Intel has been letting, they've been on 14 nanometer for a while. Like, it's been a long while at this point. I can understand them wanting to control their own destiny to do all this stuff. I think you raised an important point. They're also ditching AMD because they had AMD GPUs. Everyone's talking like, Apple ditched Intel. They're also ditching AMD on the GPU side. They're just cutting ties left and right over there.
Yeah, because that's why Tim Cook was smiling in that meme I saw on Twitter because it's just like, oh, damn, how much are we making now? I think the whole Bumpgate and NVIDIA thing, I don't think there's something else. It can't just be Bumpgate because let me tell you.
Apple has memory. Apple has grudges.
They do.
I remember back in the 1990s, if not maybe early, it feels like the 1990s. Somebody at ATI blew it. They totally blew it. And they said, yeah, the new iMac or whatever it is going to use an ATI graphics chip or something like that. Well, you know how that is with Apple, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we fired that person. In fact, the person is cleaning out dumpsters at the company to punish them. Like, no, you're never. The story was like they're never going to be back in there, but they were, right. There's a difference between making a mistake like that and something like Bumpgate or Intel not moving forward with this manufacturing process for half a decade. But you know what? I honestly don't believe it because if Apple blaming a vendor for totally screwing up and making a bad product that failed on them, they would have to stop making Macs because frankly, I know that everybody's like, I've never had a Mac fail. You know how many MacBooks I have at home that are bulged out from batteries going bad? And I have like 3 of them, right? I literally have 3 of them where the batteries have bulged. There have been Macs made where the screens have failed. The butterfly keyboards, they have screwed up left and right, like every single company that has to make. It's complicated making a whole laptop and devices. There are going to be some screw ups. I don't believe that's behind the blood feud. There must have been something else behind that. That's why I just don't think it was necessarily just Bumpgate, because Bumpgate wasn't just Apple. That was Dell, that was HP, that was anybody who built something with that line of GPUs. So I can't believe it's got to be something.
I think it is, and not necessarily just that Bumpgate happened, but NVIDIA's reaction to it.
Yeah,
I also believe that Apple is going to play hardball with Epic Like they were just saying, we're not reinstating you until all the appeals process is done. And Tim Sweeney was complaining that might be 5 years, and Apple's like, yep.
Yeah, of course they're going to play hardball. And I will tell you, Epic will play hardball with Apple too. And they got some problems with. Everybody with a closed software marketplace has major issues now. They really need to think like, how are we going to get out of once you get the government jumped on your back. The government loves that ride. It ain't never getting off. You could ask Microsoft. You could ask anybody. They never get off your back. And you got the EU climbing on a Apple now too. So it's just not fun. Yep. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, man, these chips look impressive as hell though, or heck, pardon me, kids who are watching. They have the LP, lots of P's DR5 memory now. So they have that. They have a big 32 megabyte of single layer cache for the GPU. So it's kind of like what AMD is doing with Infinity Cache on the 1080p cards. So this thing's going to have awesome memory bandwidth too, which is going to be great for content creators. Again, I think this people are looking at this like, how can I compare it against the RTX 3080? But I think this GPU is tuned to just hum on content creation tasks. That's my gut reaction looking at this.
Yeah, no, it's clearly made as a showcase for Final Cut Pro and also for hopefully Adobe products, which is the weird thing. I sort of think it's interesting to me because Adobe is the one that makes or breaks platforms now. It used to be said if you had a computer and you didn't have Office, of course, predating that, there were older applications. But there was a time that if Microsoft had stopped offering Office on the Mac, it would have been over. It would have been totally put into the same bin with your Atari ST and Amiga, right? Because it's just like, what the hell do I want this Apple laptop if I can't get Office, right? That was sort of the thing. Nobody really cares if you can get Office anymore. If you ask me, maybe corporate customers, but most people like, what do I need the functions? But Adobe, if you do not have a platform with Adobe Creative Cloud on there, Creative Suite on there, you don't have a platform, right? It's not a serious platform at that point. Yep. I mean, that's sort of like, I think like with Chrome OS. Chrome OS
at
will
that
never
level
be
of
serious.
kind of laptop, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but
there's people who, if they just need to browse the web, Chrome OS is fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's that there's a certain thing where that's kind of like that great spot where Chrome OS is kind of beating everybody because say what you will, a lot of people who bought MacBook Pros 13s, it's basically a Chromebook. They could have bought a Chromebook for what a lot of them are using it for. It wouldn't have mattered, but they're like, I might use Photoshop, so they're going to buy it, right? So. Well, but I just sort of think like without Adobe, it's over, and it feels like everybody, NVIDIA, Intel, and Apple and AMD, they gotta. If you don't have Adobe on your side, if you are not optimized to scream like a bat out of hell with Adobe products, you're non-existent, right?
We have some great questions from Dr. Ian Cuttress of Tech Potato. What's going on, Ian? Friend of the show. You should get we'll send you a shirt. Give me your address. But anyway.
I ain't going.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know where you are. Anyway, you know what you need? I don't care if you're on a Mac. I don't care if you're on a PC. You're going to need antivirus, right? You're going to need some of these tools to keep you safe going on the web, because you know what? Even as impressive as these new chips and laptops might be from Apple, you're going to need antivirus. You're going to need things like a VPN, especially if you're on public Wi-Fi, right? Well, you know what? You can check out Avast. Avast is a security suite of software. There's a free version of Avast One that comes with those things I just talked about, like antivirus, VPN, everything to keep you safe while you peruse the internet, whether you're on a Windows or a Mac system. So you should go check it out. Thank you for sponsoring the Full Nerd. I just get that in there real quick. Anyway, so thank you. Avast One, Avast.com. Check it out. But to a question from Dr. Ian Cuttress on the Adobe front, he actually has two good questions. How do you benchmark Adobe when you need a license for every machine running tests across multiple systems at once? Gordon, how do you get around that?
Well, you can remember if you have a license for Creative Cloud, you can activate, I think, 2 machines simultaneously. So I have heard people who are benchmarking multiple platforms will install the application, run the app to make sure it's activated. Say, like if you're running Procyon or Puget Bench, and then go to airplane mode, because you should always be running in airplane mode anyway if you're doing any testing, as you know, and then you just simply run the test that way. But yeah, it's a pain. Activated software is kind of a pain.
Yep.
That's why I don't benchmark Origin-based PC games, because they have a similar thing with lockouts. It's like, nope, I don't have enough time for that.
I had Ubi kill me one time because I was like doing testing, and I was doing that trick of where you like go offline and do your testing. Well, eventually they're like, well, this is really suspicious behavior. It's like, I'm like, and it just stopped working. It's like, oh, it's like, even though I logged out of everything, it was just like, nope, not going to run. It's like, our office is like 200 yards from their office. I was going to go over there and knock on their door, but I didn't.
Ian says he doesn't run in airplane mode. He disables the network controllers through PowerShell. Yeah, fancy.
Yeah, that could work too. I just kind of feel like it's just easier to unplug the LAN cable. So,
yeah. But a better question, and maybe something Brad can help with this. Also from Ian, do we really think the GPU can access all 400 gigabyte per second itself? I wonder what the internal fabric can support. Perhaps that becomes the bottleneck.
No, I 100% agree with that. We're going to have to wait and see what it's like in the real world. I 100% agree with that. That I would be shocked if that's all going to the GPU alone. So when you're doing something that's in the GPU and the CPU, might not hit those levels. I agree.
You know what's a little bit weird about that too? Because there's an M1 Pro, and then there's
M1 Max.
There's an M1 Max that has basically the 200 gig memory bandwidth, and there's an M1 Max with a 400 gig, which is only on the 17-inch. It's not available, or 16. It's only on the 16-inch. It's not on the 14. But they don't seem to differentiate it. Like, it doesn't say like, this is the M1 Max, right? Max Plus. Or it's just weird that like one is.
There's
like,
a differentiation for the price.
Yeah, but you would think that there would be some kind of differentiator. But it's I'm not sure why they're doing it that way. Because
they would play up whatever. Like, that's obviously a benefit to some workflows and stuff like that. You'd think they would play that up in the marketing or at least on the tech specs or something like that. They'd be like, yeah, if you want to do X, Y, Z, this is the one that you want.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just that. TechWishon, friend of the show, points out the Pro has 2 times hardware video encoders on board, and I think the Max has 4 or something like that. Yeah, so I mean, there's reasons to step up, and obviously you're going to need kind of the bigger chassis, I think, to hopefully keep it cool. So I think that's why they do that. But
yeah, it is.
I do love how Apple showed the die shots and the layouts and everything of the chips. That was super cool. I wish PC companies would do that more often.
Yeah, no, I mean, they got to show off their new baby. So I do wonder too about the battery life performance. I mean, clearly anybody who's ever used a gaming laptop knows battery is to go from, as far as most of them, is to go from the kitchen to the bedroom or something. It's about as far as you really kind of want to go. You're never really going to see gaming on any real discrete GPU in excess of an hour and a half, at maybe 2 hours. If you're lucky, I guess. There's some controls that NVIDIA puts in their control frame rates, but it's pretty bad. I do wonder if we're really going to see that kind of insane battery life out of these, which you would think you would. With all the hardware encoders, I would think like, yeah, you may really see like, yeah, I can encode, 8K video streams on the new M1 Max, and I can do it in the field, and it'll be okay if it's all on the hardware encoders.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the thing. Pros, if you can plug into the wall, you plug into the wall. Like I would say, editing, rendering, gaming, anything on a laptop. Yeah. If you're trying to really push it, you're counting against the clock. So I'm not. Yeah, and then I'm not too worried.
The one limit on all these is you are, for people who don't know, you cannot have a laptop that has a battery larger than 100 watt hours and bring it onto a plane. So no matter who makes that laptop, Dell, HP, MSI, Asus, Apple, the battery cannot exceed 100 watt hours. So that is always the hard limit. Can you really I'm really interested to see if you can really stretch out that battery life under a heavy load. Playing video is not a big deal. Like if you're sitting there doing something that is going to be really pushing that 400 gigs a second on that GPU on the MacBook Pro, are you really going to see 4 hours of battery life, 5 hours of battery life?
I agree with you. I think that's probably going to be the case. That being said, if their efficiency is as good as they claim, 70% better than the RTX 3050 or 3080, depending which chip you're looking at, with all those hardware encoders, all that stuff all put together, I think, especially if you're doing one of those tasks like ProRes rendering or whatever, something that really takes advantage of it, I would not be surprised if it winds up not necessarily being 5 or 6 hours kind of, rendering videos, but a lot longer than you would find on a comparable gaming notebook on the Windows side.
Yeah. Another thing that I think people, we don't have one for testing, obviously, but I really hope people who are testing it are doing it in a fair manner. And that is, if you are doing a workload on the new M1 MacBook Pro, you definitely should be using native, because I think there are cases where there's just nothing native. So you do also have to point that out too, because there's some things where it still sucks if it's not native. But I do feel like you can't have like, oh, look, we did this, ProRes render in Final Cut Pro, and then we ran this one thing that's either all CPU bound on a PC gaming laptop in Premiere, and look, it's like it can't. It's got to be the same thing.
It's going to be two things. It's going to be either, hey, we ran this on Final Cut Pro, but we wanted to test it on a Windows laptop, but you couldn't, so it's faster. Or the other thing's going to be like, oh, we're just going to run Geekbench, and then, oh yeah, it's cool. It's so much better. Yeah,
that's what it is. But to be fair, I think a lot of the Mac reviews that I see aren't even going to compare it against Windows laptops. 90% of the Mac reviews I see out there just compare to last generation Macs, which, as we said, people tend to get locked into that ecosystem. I think that's a fair way of doing it too for enthusiast reviews.
Yeah, sort of. And here's my problem with that is, I think, yes, definitely, you know what? People are going to buy Apple. They're going to buy Apple. They're never going to switch brands. Or 99%. There's a reason why 90% of the world runs Windows, and there's a reason why 10% of it runs Macs. Never going to change. It hasn't changed in years, right? But I think just what the hell was I even saying?
I have no idea.
I don't. We were talking about
they're not going to comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah, so I think so. Like, I think it is completely fair, and I think it would be crazy because, again, people who are on Mac Island aren't going to switch for the most part. So you definitely need to put, Intel x86 MacBook Pro up against, M1 Pro Max, whatever you want to call it. That is completely fair. But then I think my problem is, like, you will see the reviews come out whenever they come out, and then, like, I can tell you, I am absolutely sure that the M1s will stomp the holy hell out of the old MacBook Pro. That's not even that's not, why even doubt it, right? That's just like, it's going to stomp the holy hell out of that. But then you're going to get people that go on Twitter and say, like, oh my God, look at that. There's no way any PC laptop would ever compare. Look, they just totally crushed these MacBook Pros with a 9th gen CPU and a Radeon, whatever, 550. There's like it's a limited to 87 watt hours in a really thin. That laptop, I think, was like 4.2 pounds. I think something the new MacBook Pros are actually heavier. I just think that you're going to get the people somehow infer that a super thin, already thermally limited MacBook Pro 16 with Intel is somehow comparable to a Ryzen 9 or a Tiger Lake Intel with an RTX 3080 or 30 series. It's just not the same. You have to then do your comparisons before you go on your Twitter screaming about it, right? That to me is the problem.
If someone listening to this does happen to be reviewing M1 Max laptop, if you get into contact with MSI, Gigabyte, or one of those companies, ASUS, that does offer one of those high-end Ryzen 9, Core i9 chips with the RTX 3080, I'm sure they would be very happy to send you one for comparison. Just throwing that out there, someone who is not reviewing the M1 Mac myself.
I will say the reason why I switched was that I started to hear that there were things that Apple couldn't do, right? When I was deep in it, it wasn't like I was looking and being like, oh, I need a new laptop. Well, should I get this one or should I get that one? I was like, no, well, I'm gonna get Mac, so I guess how much am I gonna have to pay for what features? I think where it really started to bubble up and where the comparisons get it wrong is like there are some things that the PC can do better, and also the gaming part of it. So it was just like, oh, okay, well, if I'm gonna buy a computer, you know what, I might lose out on some things, I might gain on some things, but I also might really gain on gaming. You know, that's when it started to kind of seep in and be like, hey, you know what, and it's usually cheaper depending on what you're doing, you know. So for me, it's like, even if I saw that the new M1 Mac or M1 Max, whatever, had a great Premiere encoding, you know, it's just like, oh man, it just, you know, I don't know, 10% better in my use case, even that well. It's like, yeah, but I mean, is that still enough for me to push off the gaming stuff and all the things? Like for me, I'm not the buyer who's like, I just want the best. You know, for me, it's more like, okay, it's going to be trade-offs no matter what. So I think that's the thing, is that a lot of these people screaming on Twitter or the Mac review sites that just review Mac and don't look at Windows stuff, is that they're looking inside their own ecosystem. And right now, Apple still does sell an Intel-based laptop. So they're like, well, don't ever buy this one. You should just get this one. And this is how much better it is. You know? Yeah.
I do. You know, this is, I hope it'd be interesting to hear what Ian's thoughts on this are. But so I kind of wonder what this does for the future of the Mac. Right now, everything is, you know, sunny every day. 5 years from now, Intel, AMD, in the next 5 years of fighting AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel, and, you know, basically the competition between those three is fierce all the time. It drives all three of them to make better products, to dunk on each other all the time. Now that the Mac is sort of like really even more isolated from that, will performance continue to hockey stick up, or will it just sort of like, or does Apple go like, well, we've got everybody. They're now basically, you're not going anywhere, right? You have your Mac, you're in our ecosystem. You're not going to run Windows. Where do they, are they?
I think Apple has a good, strong track record of continuing to keep the pedal to the metal with its own chips in the iPad, in the iPhone. Like, they never rested on their laurels. They make sure to stay out there in the front. I think being in their own, I think it just adds that much more to the competition. I think they will be pushed to continue to say, hey, we still smoke NVIDIA, we still smoke Intel, we still smoke AMD. And those companies will be pushed just as hard to say, hey, you know, M1 Max, more like M1 less or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is they could,
but I'm saying
NVIDIA doesn't
they
care.
haven't done that. They haven't done that in the past. Apple hasn't with their own chips. They've always kept it going.
But the thing is, NVIDIA does not care what Apple does, and they haven't cared for years. Clearly, there's some kind of blood feud. We don't know what it's over. But what do they care? They don't, you know, and does it really change? I mean, for NVIDIA, the only thing they're interested in is continuing to eat into Intel's market share in data center, right? Also to continue to bash AMD's brain in all the time.
And to sell Mac users GeForce Now.
Yeah, I mean, but they don't care. But I guess what I'm saying is like their Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA will continue to fight. That means that will continue to make them compete and work harder to make better things. I don't doubt that Apple is going to stop and rest on their laurels. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is now the Mac is now tied to the iPhone. It's the iPad. It's iPhone, iPad, Mac. So you have this sort of like triumvirate, and is that always is the drive for that? Since they basically don't compete with Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA anymore, isn't it tied to the development of the Mac, of the iPhone more so than the Mac? And then how does that affect sort of the vectors of where the other three are going? You know, because they're going in different directions, and Apple's history is like, yeah, you know what, we don't care about pro stuff, right? It's already pretty good. What do you need? You know, like, but look, they got this new awesome feature that they're doing. They don't, I mean, it's just kind of, in some ways, if they don't have to compete as much, because now everybody's even more locked into that ecosystem, is that going to take some, like, it's not going to be as, they don't really have to beat anybody. Who cares? What are you going to do? Switch the, run Windows on your Mac? It's not going to, no.
Well, I get where you're coming from. I just to me, I don't see that in the history of Apple. I don't see them acting like that. I would not be worried about that if I was in the market for a Mac, which I definitely am not.
Also, Dr. Ian Cuttress says, isn't the blood feud that Apple wanted to use OpenCL and NVIDIA wanted to use CUDA?
Yep.
I don't know.
Who knows?
That's part of it too.
It feels like it's whatever it is. It is way more deeper. It is clearly somebody got offended somewhere, and
Bumpgate.
It can't be Bumpgate.
With Bumpgate, they were trying to get the vendors to take the hit instead of NVIDIA themselves too. I'm sure Apple didn't like that.
I think that was just part of the negotiation. But again, the amount of this is the problem with people in the Apple side is they always pretend there's nothing ever stinks. And believe me, everybody lays turds once in a while, and Apple has laid plenty of turds on its laptops. Screen stopped working. You close the thing, and the screen shatters, or the key stopped because you get a speck of dust. They do it all the time, and it doesn't turn into "we're never going to talk to you again" kind of thing. Whatever it is, it's pretty damn serious. I don't know what it is.
We do have a couple super chats I want to get to real quick. Brian Lynn gave us $5. Thank you so much. Said one thing I would be interested in, at least to me, is a guide on switching to Mac OS for PC users. What do we lose? What do we gain? That's interesting. VC Jester, friend of the show, thank you so much. Gave us $5. Said I'm behind, but Gordon is collecting MacBooks with battery bulges. The ATF has entered the chat.
I actually, and I'm not even joking. I have like 2 MacBook Airs and a MacBook Pro 15. The one where I'm sorry, again, I just want to point this out. It's one of those models where they literally never changed a thing for like 6 years. So Apple if you want evidence of Apple getting complacent with its Macs, I could break out like 50 different models of Macs where they got complacent as hell.
Oh yeah. I'll give you up until like 3 years ago, the MacBook Air still had 720p screens. So
yeah, no, I mean like what? And then like because one of the pictures, because it's always fun to make fun of somebody who never like. If I wore their shirt every day for the next 6 years, you would notice it. Like, but I literally could stack up like 5 years of MacBook Pros, and you could not tell the difference. You could shuffle them.
Yeah.
And like I could get like the hardest MacBook fan. Like, could you tell the difference? Like, no, you couldn't. They were all exactly the same, except like
they all lost ports.
Well, no, even the ports were the same. They maybe changed like the CPU one generation, but like, come on.
Sorry, we got a 200 ruple. I'm sorry, from Karthik. Thank you so much. Said actually a lot of the argument is kind of pointless. Most people will be happy with the performance out of a Ryzen 5000 or Tiger Lake or M1 for most tests. Very true. Obviously, we're talking about extreme cases. But Apple is just annoying with its deceptive marketing. Yes, which is the annoying piece.
I don't know. There will be some things you do on the MacBook that are going to be incredible. Like They're going to be amazing because you have tightly coupled software, application, and hardware. And when you take advantage of it, it's going to be amazing, right? Mm-hmm. So I get what you're saying there. For most people, yeah, but again, it's like everybody just needs to take a breath, step back. These are all products where they want you to open up your purse, pull out your wallet, give them your credit card, and buy it. These are not your friends. These are not your brand. Don't put their sticker on your car. Don't go to Twitter and yell about it. They just want your money. You find the best tool for your needs. If the MacBook M1 Max is what floats your boat and does it, buy it. Please do. That's what you should do. I would never say do otherwise. If you play games, buy a PC gaming laptop. That's what it comes down to. It's what you do, not your tribe or your team or ridiculousness of people. That's the thing that I think people need to push back against. It's silly. Frankly, if the MacBook was that awesome for what I did, I would buy a MacBook. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. Don't be loyal to any brand, any stupid sticker on your car. Just simply, buy what works for you. That's what you should do, not what the companies want you to believe.
Well, friend of the show, Big Mama in the house, what's going on, said, so will this new M1 push AMD to offer larger APUs with larger memory in their laptops?
No.
No.
It's what Intel does that will push AMD to do what the new APUs. They don't care. I mean, and this is the unfair part of this world too. 90% of the planet Earth, the third rock from the sun, every year elects to buy a computer, an x86 processor for a PC running Windows, mostly. Some run Linux, data center stuff. Why do we always have to think that everybody does something just because of what this small minority does? Right? Why do we even have to think about that? But we just love to do it. We like to beat ourselves up about this.
Yep. Big Mama in the House also follows up, said this earlier, and there are some people chatting about this here. Is the future an all-in-one SoC? No upgradability, and also right to repair stuff. You know, that is one thing.
You know, I love using this because we need to challenge our own beliefs too. If Intel, because I know if, you know, obviously, because, you know, everybody likes to beat up on Intel. If Intel said, look, next generation of CPU for laptops, it's going to be integrated memory. We just like this whole tightly coupled thing that Apple's doing, that everybody got like, oh my God, this is the best thing in the world, tightly coupled, you know, like it's like a, so everything will be, you know, you get this package, it's going to be fixed. What? You can't do that, Intel. I need to be able to swap my memory out, right? People will scream bloody murder if that's even attempted. And I think I don't think it's necessarily future. It might be, but if it is, people need to be able to go like, yeah, okay, it's a better thing and it's worth it for the technical advantages. So I will accept that. Not scream like, you can't change ATX, right? You can't.
I agree 100% with everything you're saying. If that I could see a future where that does definitely wind up being the case 10 years from now plus. But in the short term, at the very least, like not just upgradability, but the ability to customize your hardware to what you need and throw a gigantic 350 watt RTX 3090 in your system if you need to do content creation tasks or all those kinds of things. Like that is a benefit. And I think it's clear that the PC companies believe that as well. Just look at the way that NVIDIA is trying to buy CPUs, trying to buy ARM. Look at the way that Intel is getting into GPUs. I'm not worried about everything getting mind melded at once anytime in the near future.
Yeah, but I do wonder though, like, because the mix and match is what I love. It's what makes it so awesome to be a DIYer or desktop person. But are we kind of like the advantages of that? Or have we sort of like hit the end where we do have to accept some more integration? We've already integrated PCIe. We've already integrated, you know, memory controllers. What about integrated memory, right? So GDDR7X integrated on the motherboard with a tightly coupled CPU and GPU from Intel, AMD, or NVIDIA. Would DIYers immediately scream bloody murder? I can't mix AMD with Intel or, you know, or NVIDIA with AMD anymore? Or do we, you know, I don't know.
I mean, I'd say the laptop space definitely different than the desktop space, though. Obviously.
Yeah, it is. But I can tell you that there would be resistance if Intel's first mobile part with some next future part came with a tightly coupled CPU and GPU, no PCIe, locking out AMD or NVIDIA. People would scream bloody murder, right?
Yep.
On our side. So, but I'm just saying there might be some technical advantages for that. And maybe it's the future we do have to prepare for, because it may be because if that's the thing that's better, do you just simply resist because there's no modularity? Or do we say, well, we love this idea, but you need to do it in a way that's modular? I don't know what the right answer is. I'm just putting that out there because it pushes people on their comfort level, especially with the way things are done on this side.
Very true.
It's something I'm going to worry about in a decade.
Yeah. Well, I know, but come on. The one thing you can say about PC crowd, Brad, is we love worrying about stuff.
Oh, yeah. I know what I like to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, Master Procrastinator over on Discord, friend of the show, asks, Windows ARM devices don't perform very well compared to Apple ARM devices. What will it take to change that? Is the PC stuck with x86?
I don't know, because I mean they are, and it is, and I think it is very fair to. Oh my God, that SQ1 in that Mac the Surface. Oh my God, that was like what? Like I got this thing stuck in backwards or something. It was like like everything was like M1 up here, Ryzen up here, Core i7 up here, and they're like, what is this little stumpy thing down here? Oh, that's the SQ1. I don't know. I mean, do you wonder if that's I have asked that because I'm not an ARM person, but I've asked that. People's like, is this like it's clearly not an ARM thing now that we have M1, but is this like a Qualcomm thing? Is this a manufacturing thing? I don't know what it is, but I think
it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture of possibly a Qualcomm thing, along with I think Apple's software emulation is just they got that finely tuned, and I don't think Microsoft and Qualcomm's joint efforts there.
Yeah, they
can hang with
they still take a pretty big hit though. I mean, it's like 25 to 30% on there.
Which is
really good. Which is
a lot better than what you find on trying to run Chrome on a Qualcomm laptop. Or not Chrome, but something that you care about performance with.
I just don't understand. Like it's one of those things like with that original SQ1 Surface, it's like this is something you should never have released. This should have been like a developer platform, right? Because it's just like it's almost like, yeah, it proves it runs, but this just sort of makes people not want it even more.
Yeah, it's been the problem with Windows on ARM the whole time. Like the original Surface RT came out with that Windows 8 RT, and that died real quick because of the exact same issues. So maybe it's a Windows thing. Who knows?
I don't know. And the thing that kind of scares me too, because Microsoft keeps wanting to push this whole ARM thing, which I get. It should be open, and people do forget Windows used to run on many, many different processor architectures. It wasn't just x86. It's just that the one that won. But I just sometimes feel like, why do they keep doing this? Like, why do they keep pushing this whole mobile tablet world thing? It's like it almost feels like Microsoft wants to make another run at like iPad. Which I don't get.
Well, I mean, Qualcomm laptops have the super long battery life. They have the 5G and stuff which you can also get in Intel stuff. But those are like features of that. And those are compelling features.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting kind of off topic here. Yep. But there are benefits to it. It just hasn't worked out yet. And I am not at all sure why, but something is clearly not working out there.
Well, I will point out, Brad, the reason why you need that long battery life on that Qualcomm-based Windows device is because it takes that much longer to finish. So that is like, that's great. I got 4 hours of battery life left. It's like, well, because it can take you 3 hours, so I guess that's good.
Okay. And anything else you want to say about Apple stuff before we move on?
Yeah, I was in a briefing. It's an embargo briefing, so I can't even say what it was or who it was or whatever. But I think in the Q&A section, I think it was like maybe 1 minute and 40 seconds before someone asked, is the M1, is this faster than the M1? And the new M1 Max. And I thought it was, again, I think it is appropriate to ask, is the M1 Max faster than a new GPU laptop? Or a new CPU in a laptop for something that had nothing to do with a mobile part at all. I thought it was rather interesting, but I just want to point out it took less than 2 minutes for somebody to ask that question.
Time to M1. That's what we're going to track. We should just keep track of that. All right. Well, yeah. Have you reached out to Apple to see if you get a review yet for your own testing?
No, are you kidding? And I want to point out something. These guys are acting like they are attending a Windows x86 funeral. It's because of all the Twitter stuff. People are saying it's over. In fact, we are in a funeral. That's why we're saying that, man.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how Ryzen runs on Windows 11. I know there's been problems. We kind of touched on it a little bit last week, but it wasn't a focus or anything. What's going on with Ryzen on Windows 11, Gordon?
Two main issues. One, not quite as serious. That is actually fixed as of this morning, so this question isn't that important. But on Windows 11, if you had a Ryzen, they have their best core. So like in each of their clusters, they will say what core is slightly faster than the others. Windows 11 did not properly recognize that. A new chipset update. Go to PCWorld.com to see where to get that download, read the story, click on it, download that, install it. Once you do that, Windows 11 on your Ryzen system will then recognize the correct CPU to throw some tasks at that, slightly faster than others. Not a big deal. The other problem was far more serious, and that was L3 cache performance was really, really hobbled. I think it was 3 times slower, and I think also testing by Paul Alcorn over at Tom's Hardware found it to be Windows 10 cache performance on Ryzen was 11 times faster than what it was on Windows 11. So clearly it was a major issue. That is
a major issue. That's still not fixed.
Well, Mark Hockman, go to PCWorld.com. You can find this said they released a patch for it supposedly for insiders, for people running the beta versions of Windows 11. It is corrected.
They're all beta versions.
It hasn't dropped yet officially. If you're not running an insider preview version, that's expected to fix it. It isn't out yet, but clearly it is not a good look for Windows 11 on Ryzen. And of course, the conspiracy theories are already running on that one. The conspiracy
we got it on the
theory
chat.
emails.
Yeah. Well,
it is kind of awkward because they've spent a lot of time talking up how much work they put into the Intel Thread scheduler in this, and then Ryzen chips have been around for years at this point, and they've been working this way for a while. And for it just to have all these issues right out of the gate, it's a rough look. It's more of a rough look for Microsoft than for AMD, in my opinion. But it's a rough look.
We got two good questions just to back it up a little bit. Dave Weldon asks, "Can you explain why is it an L3 cache issue?" And the other one is from CPUY. I was asking why AMD only and not Intel.
I don't know exactly what the issue is. I didn't read the whatever they posted on the blog post about what fixed it. I don't think they particularly said. Clearly, it was somebody was reaching for their Diet Snapple when they should have been typing something instead, and something slipped into it. Why only AMD and not Intel? I don't know. Frankly, I don't know, and I know of course people are going to say it's because Wintel, right? That long said conspiracy. It could be. There's so many different reasons it could be. It could be they are developing a new operating system during the time of a pandemic. Everybody's doing remotely. It is a lot easier for you to get stuff fixed as a manager when you go over and glare at somebody over the cubicle wall, rather than trying to get a Zoom call with them when they say, "Oh, I'm in the bathroom." Okay, well, I can't bother you now. It could be because Intel simply has a lot more developer resources. Their engineering resources may have been working with Microsoft very, very closely on Windows 11 scheduler because it affects Alder Lake more than anything. All of that means all the eyeballs are looking at this brand new, design from Intel. Maybe they didn't pay attention to that and assumed it would just simply work like it did on Windows 10 and something worked in there. So I don't know, but there's a lot of reasons that it could be beyond simply conspiracy from a moon base, volcano base. Because I want a volcano base.
One of the unfortunate things is I went and looked, and there are Windows Insider forum chat threads going back to July mentioning this. It was flagged as a potential issue by at least some beta testers, but it made it into the full release. I think Microsoft rushed this out the door is my feeling. Just looking at the overall level of bugs, the fact that Android apps weren't ready, there's no direct storage games supported yet. I think they rushed Windows 11 out the door for the holiday season so we can get laptops with it. And I think, this stuff is complicated, man. We're all just used to Windows working, but getting all these, fancy pieces of sand to interact with the software at the operating system level and then out beyond that to everything, it's super complicated. So we're just witnessing that. We said don't upgrade to Windows 11 yet, and stuff like this is exactly why. Because there's going to be more stuff like this. When Windows 10 came out, it turned out if you plugged in a Kindle, it would it would stop the laptop from charging or something like that. There were issues with webcams, there were issues with Kindles. There's always bugs and issues. I'm not overly concerned about this. It does just reiterate the point that I think you should be in no rush to upgrade to Windows 11 yet.
Good question in the chat here from Momet Smith. I think that's how you pronounce that. They said, hopefully AMD fixes this before next year when they have the new Ryzen with the additional L3 cache on CPU. So could this get worse if AMD? How's this going to impact AMD?
I don't think it'll get worse, and I understand the fix is coming soon. So I think basically people won't remember this in a couple weeks. It'll just be people pulling their hair out over whatever the results of new products are in 2 weeks. So it's not a big deal. And I remember Microsoft built a Surface laptop with an AMD CPU, right? They clearly, they like what AMD is doing. They built the Xbox with AMD. They like a lot of things about what AMD has. So this is not, Microsoft has something out against AMD. I don't believe. So I think
not whatsoever.
There's still things that are coming, and I'm sure when the Vcache version comes out, things will be fine. It's sort of like by then Windows 11 will have a lot of the bugs ironed out. So
hopefully
they may actually get more attention by then.
I wouldn't be surprised if when Alder Lake does wind up coming out later this year, it has some issues with the thread scheduler as well. So it's just these things happen with new operating systems, especially when you're talking about changing how threads are scheduled and stuff like that. And all this stuff, man, is complicated.
Yeah, it will get ironed out, hopefully. I mean, it is kind of that, you do point out that really good point, though, is like people were like, hey, this is a problem months ago, and it never got fixed. But that happens. I had a phone made by a very large company that starts with G in it. Basically, at some point, the Wi-Fi and the cellular radios, like, performance was horrible, and they never fixed it. So
that's what happens when you buy a gateway phone.
Yeah, it was a gateway phone, but no, I think it'll be okay by then.
Yeah. But it does mean in the short term, if you have upgraded to Windows 11, be updating, be on the lookout, not just the operating system, but be on the lookout for drivers like this from AMD, from Intel, from whoever makes your graphics card. Like, expect to have to update more often than you normally would as these things get ironed out.
And I think everybody should also just don't take the 3-line post to Reddit or Twitter and then think that is the last word on everything, because it isn't. Yeah, sure, things are kind of a shambles right now, to be frank, but it's going to get better. Things always get fixed. Don't just sort of always key in on this sort of like chaos at the beginning, because anytime there's a new believe me, when these new Macs launch, there will be plenty of bugs that will show up too, and it'll get ironed out. It's just not a big deal.
It is a big deal because, I mean, AMD itself said, with this L3 cache thing, and it might be combined with the best core thing, I don't remember. Esports games, if you're playing esports games, like it would drop your performance by 10 to 15% again. So that's tangible. So that does stink. You do want to go update, but yeah, the world is not burning. Just hold off on updating to Windows 11 for now.
And yeah, you're right, Brad, because it's not like it's like, oh, let's just ignore it and fix it in 6 months. Because no, this has to be fixed right now. But at the same time, the only reason why they're fixing it now when it was flagged whatever months ago is because everybody's screaming about it. You get people on forums, you see Twitter, you see news stories and videos on YouTube saying this is horrible, and they go, "Oh, somebody's got to fix this now." So that does help.
Mm-hmm. All right, I want to get some questions before we get out of here. Okay. Sure. Nice. I will switch it over. If you have questions, get them in on the chat platform of your choice and at PC World, so I can see them and organize them easier. But if you're listening to this later or watching this later, get on over our Discord. We got some fine folks over there. There is a channel to pop in questions that I can read at any time and at any place. So let's go first with a super chat that just came in from Ruben Berlin. Thank you so much. He gave us 10 Canadian dollars, I think, and said, I noticed I had an update. I went and checked what it was, and it was Windows 11. If I had just blindly updated, would I now be running Windows 11? Are they pushing Windows 11 on folks in this sly way? How many people do you think are getting fooled on it?
What it does is you'll get the updates, and I've seen it on my own system. No, I haven't. I lied. I saw it on another laptop that I was testing. You'll get the Windows 10, you have updates available, that kind of standard stuff. But you also see a big box that says, hey, Windows 11 is here now. We have all this stuff. Click this box if you want to update to Windows 11. So it's a big totally separate, different box than anything else you've ever seen before in the Windows Update thing. I don't, as a person who was one of the front runners of calling Microsoft out on how it handled the Windows 7 to Windows 10 Force updates, like I was interviewed by the BBC for it, kind of a deal. I don't find what Microsoft is doing right now shady. I think they're doing it just right.
I screwed up and I joined the insider preview to get a Windows 11 build for some testing, and it is sometimes hard to get out of that insider. It was like, it was continually trying to install it. I'd like erase it and then I'd reboot and then it would like start downloading again. It's like, how do I stop this thing?
That's why I know some people who run those on like their only computer. It's like, man, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you for that super chat. Here's a good one from friend of the show, CMC Knight in 1984. So serious question time. With TSMC having a new foundry opening in 2023, could Apple even then provide a sufficient amount of chips to make them the majority machine in actual units?
You mean actually take over market share for the entire world?
Yes.
they're too high priced.
Yeah, no, that's like, it doesn't, Apple exists to sell. I'm going to explain it this way. The M1 and the M1 Pro and M1 Max, as good as they are for what they are comparatively, they're not going to go into $300 PCs. They're not going to go into $150 Chromebooks. It's just not, that's not where Apple likes to play. And every time Apple's even tried to make low-cost devices, they never sell because most people who buy Apple items always select 11 for every single option. So it's never going to happen because the entire world cannot afford to shell out $2,000 for a new laptop.
Yeah, it's been several years since I've looked at the stats, so it might be wildly out of date at this point. And PC laptops are a lot better now than they used to be. But it used to be like MacBooks made up like 10% of overall PC sales, but got like 85% of the profits or something like that back in the day. And that's the kind of ratio that you want as a business. Like if you could sell more, great. But if you're making in all the profits going for the high end, you're not shooting for mass market. Macs and laptops are different from iPhones because iPhones, you subsidize those. You get them through your carriers, you pay $10 a month. That's not going to happen anytime soon for a Mac. So,
yeah. And to give you an idea, in actual units shipped, Apple ships maybe around as many. Apple, a $1 trillion company, one of the most valuable companies in human history, ships maybe, they sell as many Macs as about as many as Asus or Acer. Maybe sometimes they sort of like move positions. Lenovo, Dell, and HP sell a ton more computers than Apple does. And it's just, but they make plenty of money. That Apple doesn't care. They only care about the money. They don't care about how many they sell, really.
someone should ask me a question about GeForce Now.
Oh yeah,
you mentioned it earlier already.
Real quick, so I'm having a hard time getting an RTX 3080, Brad. You know, it's real hard getting a GPU out there. What should I do?
Well, setting this up. Today actually came in last minute, so it wasn't on the show schedule. NVIDIA announced a new RTX 3080 tier for GeForce Now. So I've been saying for a long time, if you don't want to go to a console, if your graphic card ain't up to snuff anymore, GeForce Now is a good alternative, a good way to get through. Or if you own a Mac, yeah. Today they rolled out new RTX 3080 plans, which gives you an RTX 3080, actually with a larger frame buffer. It has 24 gigs of VRAM instead of 10. So, all the concerns about RTX 3080 only having 10 gigabytes memory doesn't apply to this cloud version because it's not an actual 3080. They're still GA102 chips, but in a different server configuration. I think it is $100 for 6 months, $16 a month. It works out too. So that's, split between a Netflix standard plan and Netflix premium plan, $16 a month. You get access to RTX 3080. Unlike the standard servers, those are run off their own specialized servers and they're tightly managing access to them. It decided they're actually having to pre-order window for the next few weeks because you're not going to be sharing your cloud PC with other people. You won't have wait times, or you should have very minimal wait times. If you have the RTX 3080, you can get 1440p, 120 hertz streams if your monitor supports it. Also works on phones. If you have a 120 hertz phone, you can get 120 frame per second stream on your phone. They have a super cool, they call it adaptive sync technology, which it is, but it's kind of misleading because everyone has a vision of adaptive sync monitors at this time. But basically, this is for every tier now. They're making it so the server frame output matches your 60 or 120 hertz frame output on your monitor. So hopefully that'll make it more smooth for all users. If you have a Shield TV, you can get 4K HDR streams. If you have the RTX 3080 level, and that's, the TLDR, it's real hard to get a graphics card right now. Even if graphics cards were easy to get, spending $700, $800 plus on RTX 3080 is a lot of money. You can rent one from the cloud if your internet is good for $16 a month. Not something I would usually encourage in normal times, but for right now, it seems like might be a good fit for some people.
So,
sorry, we have a question, and I should have read this earlier. Andre said, by the way, GeForce Now has an RTX 3080 performance tier. Oh, sweet, thank you. What's the internet bandwidth? Any talk on how much it sucks up?
I don't know how much it sucks up. If you have a broadband cap, that will probably hit it pretty quickly. But they do have higher bandwidth requirements. Standard GeForce Now takes 25 megs a second. Or the RTX 3080 tier for 144 hertz, 140, so many numbers. 1440p, 120 hertz. They recommend 35 megs per second. And for 4K HDR to the Shield, they say 40 megs per second. So it does use more bandwidth, but that's what happens when you're getting higher resolution at faster rates.
So Brad, I want to ask this question because I know that's what everybody will ask is like, why didn't they just sell those GPUs to me instead of hoarding them all for their GeForce Now?
That's a very good question. That is kind of what I was hoping to get more of an answer to when I started asking, so what actually is this running? That's how I know it runs 24 gig thing. They use, still a GA102 die for whatever reason. It didn't make it as a 3080 would be my guess. Maybe they have been hoarding these, who knows? But there are other parts in a GPU that might fail. That would make it so you can't use it as a standalone graphics card. That might make it good for this. Like if for whatever reason, the display outputs don't work on your die, they can take all those, throw these in servers. They're not just output into a display anyway. Use it for stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if, that was part of this. It does still kind of burn, right? You can't get a 3080, but they're like, hey, we got a bunch of them in the cloud.
Yeah, it does feel like they need to get out in front of that and say like, yeah, these would not have been sold to consumers in any, these are not good enough for that, but
Yeah. Like if you think back and remember the last mining boom, we saw a bunch of Radeon RX 480s and 580s that didn't have any display outputs because you don't need that for mining. You just need that for the, off the motherboard. But those weren't taken away from graphics cards. They were ones that generally would not have been sold because you can't sell a graphics card without a display output. I'm not saying that's what these cards are. I'm saying that's very reasonably could be one of the things these cards are.
Okay. Thank you for breaking that down. CPUY gave us $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Said, what do you think will happen to the millions of PCs that aren't compatible with Windows 11?
Windows 10.
There you go.
Yeah, Windows 10 is good through 2025. I think I said this in another episode we had Mark on. I suspect it'll wind up being a Windows 7 or Windows XP moment and going a little bit longer because once it goes up, there's going to be a lot of PCs that aren't getting security patches anymore. So
yeah,
just stay on Windows 10.
And it is true too. There's people who still roll Windows XP machines without, it's just, they won't give it up. And even though it's totally insecure, you're right, they will just never move. It'll continue on to be zombies forever. So.
Well, until you get hit by an attack, that's like a nebulous threat to most people. I think most people think of like appliances. So
yeah. I'm sorry. I just saw this over on Discord. Liquid R from the show says, does the addition of the 3080 make GeForce Now the best GPU of 2021? We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So going back, Dr. Ian Cuttress.
Let's think about that. So you pay $100 to get 6 months of RTX 3080. So that means if you get a year's worth, that's $200 of RTX 3080, assuming you have internet that can, keep up with it.
Mm.
The entry level Radeon RX 6600 is $350 theoretically on the street. It's actually much more. So it, RTX 3080 in the cloud very well could be your best option right now.
Interesting. Okay.
Especially.
Oh,
Yeah.
nope, keep going.
I could go on forever. I'm gonna stop.
I'm wondering, is the thing that Google makes still around? Whatever they call
Stadia.
it?
Yeah.
Stadia. Yep. I still have a subscription, and I get the emails just to see what it's like. I pop in every once in a while, but yeah, that thing is, oh boy.
I mean, like, does anybody play it, or do they get any attention, or?
I hope
No.
so, but nobody's talking about it. So yeah. I mean, they do have things released on it. Yeah.
You got to figure, like, Google must have like a bulldozer they use in the campus to, like, they got to build the biggest mass graves ever. Like, oh, put Google Plus in there. Oh, dig it back up so we can put whatever this new thing is in there. It's just like,
Man.
Well, it's really cool underlying technology. I think I was just reading today that they're making it available in like a white box version. So like AT&T can say, hey, you can play Assassin's Creed on your TV now, kind of a deal, or in your browser. So I think they are pivoting more to just making it like an underlying technology thing, which is really cool, but a lot less exciting. Not that it was very exciting to begin with.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, if you think about it, it had to be accessed through an external device that you had to plug in. So if I had it built into a TV, I mean, I guess that would probably raise the price of the TV a little bit, but that's still a lot easier than being like, okay, well, if you want it, you also have to get the pieces.
do you think
Piece of
they sell
hardware.
advertising on those? On the Stadia thing? Do they have advertising?
Oh
I've never
man, I
used it,
feel
so.
like I saw some advertising on Twitch at some point, but I think that was a while ago.
Man, because if I worked at NVIDIA, I'd be like, how much does it cost to advertise on Stadia? Like, then you do advertising for GeForce Now on Stadia. I'm like,
I see
what is this?
That would be funny. They're like, oh, hey, we need the money. Let's
Or
put it
for
up.
like a gaming laptop, it's like, wow, you've seen like how this is the minimum floor of where PC gaming is awesome. Wouldn't you like to experience it with a real gaming laptop or desktop?
We'll give you a free subscription just so you can see how bad it is. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Speaking of NVIDIA, Sharp Thunder over on Discord asked, "What do you think of NVIDIA stopping production on GPUs until next year?"
I see that was a rumor or a report that Moore's Law is dead put out. If true, that's a big bummer. I don't know that's necessarily true. Don't take every rumor you hear with don't believe everything that you hear.
Is it? I mean, so what? I didn't see it, but is it the rumor that they just simply called up and said, "Hey, stop making them just for fun. Let's just see if people scream more"? I mean, is that what?
Moore's Law is dead report said that they're going to stop making at least the higher end, if I remember correctly, RTX 30 series GPUs to keep prices high so that they can debut the next gen series at higher prices.
That just doesn't track.
Yeah, it seems awfully conspiratorial to me. And I would think they would want to sell as many GPUs as they can. NVIDIA is a very profit centric company, so
Yeah.
I guess they could happen, but it just seems very over the top to me. Moore's Law isn't dead, does have a really good track record with some things, but he has also missed on a lot of things as well. So.
Yeah, to me, but doesn't. I mean, I guess so. The theory is they're cutting production to increase prices of something that's already stupidly overpriced and you can't buy.
Yeah, right.
To then hopefully sell you the next thing later on. I mean
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't it make sense to be Apple and say like, dude, we're so cutting prices on these MacBook Pro 16s with Intel processors. So, whoa, that's an awesome. And then, you sell like truckloads of them and like, hey, guess what we got now? I I mean, it's to me like, isn't that the right way to really kind of like take people's
Yeah.
money?
If-
Sell them the old
if-
thing that's inferior?
If it is true, it's lame. I would not say I necessarily think that's true at this point. I haven't asked NVIDIA about it. I haven't asked anybody about it. Part of it plays into the fact that the initial RTX 30 series MSRPs were kind of wonky to begin with because the cost of building custom cards versus what people had to pay to get the chip and memory package from NVIDIA made it so third-party companies really couldn't sell prices at the initially stated MSRP, which I myself have also heard from several companies. Like the margins are very tight on both the AMD and NVIDIA side. So I think that ties into it a bit. I believe that video mentioned that. But, just saying we're not making any more of these GPUs when people want to buy our GPUs and we're a GPU company that sells GPUs and everyone wants to buy one right now. It just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, and what I also don't get is like Intel clearly is going to make a splash sometime next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it feels like NVIDIA's options are we build up enough inventory, we just put up enough away so that we can either cut prices whenever Intel comes out, or we release so many of these we bury them right before they do their launch. Because if there's a company that NVIDIA wants to put down on the floor, it's going to be Intel, because they don't want somebody like Intel with Intel resources having any success here. So cutting production of high end doesn't seem to make any sense there, because you would think I could see like, don't you think that if you were NVIDIA, they go like, okay, whatever Intel's got coming, our business intelligence says this thing's going to maybe be 3070 ish.
Mm-hmm.
So let's let's stop making all these 3090s that not very few people are buying, and let's put everything in a 3070s so we can just carpet bomb them when they come out. I mean that could also kind of fit into that theory, I guess. Whereas
that would make sense.
I just don't see, I think in NVIDIA, I've said this is a joke for a long time. NVIDIA's corporate colors are green for a reason, but you don't poke people that way just to poke them. I'd want to know more before I believe it. I know he has very good, or she, I don't even know who the person is, but they have really good sources, but I'd want more information because it sounds like it's part of the elephant. So
Yeah, I agree. He has, I think, very good sources in some ways and ones that have not proven as accurate in other ways. So,
Okay. A couple more questions. Dr. Ian Cuttress said this in the chat a while ago. Not really a question, but I'm going to throw it to Gordon. Nuvia will cause Windows on ARM to break through. Do you agree or disagree?
I forgot who bought Nuvia.
I don't know, but he said earlier also that a lot of Apple Silicon engineers have moved over to Nuvia.
hey, Adam,
Yeah.
I have to step away for just a minute.
No worries.
I mean, I guess. I mean, it'd be maybe. I mean, I would believe it when I see it. I mean, I guess I can see that. It doesn't feel like. I think Qualcomm bought Nuvia, right? So
I don't know.
maybe that would be where it shows up.
Somebody's saying Qualcomm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess I'll Ian. He's way smarter than me. I'll believe it. To me, I'll believe it when I see it. When I sit down at an ARM running a Windows laptop running ARM, and I cannot tell the difference between it running Ryzen or Core i7, then okay. But until I get there, I will disbelieve it. I will tell you, I believe that on Apple with M1. I do not believe that with Windows and ARM so far. So I've tried many of them over the years, and it doesn't often impress me. So.
Okay. David Wellman asked earlier, 3 nanometer node on the new M1. Your thoughts?
5 nanometer, isn't it?
I think they're looking at next, the next TMC. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I misspoke.
cool. Yeah, no, I mean that's great for Mac users and iPhone users if you're in the ecosystem.
And it'll come to everybody else too. Like Apple's been at the leading edge of TSMC's process for a while now, just right there with NVIDIA and AMD. So
Yeah, it is kind of a bummer though. I mean, they occupy so much of TSMC's leading process that it's just like there's nothing left for anybody else sometimes.
Okay. Let's see. Kamaraju asked, why don't Why don't they integrate laptop manufacturers integrate a 5G chip on the motherboard?
Well, I mean, it's because it's very expensive, and you're adding an option that is not cheap for something that very few people will ever pay for. Those are usually in corporate laptops. This HP laptop I have here has a 4G LTE modem in it, but it's not activated because I'm not going to pay my carrier $20 a month for it. And that is the main reason. So if you can take whatever cost they're putting that integrated 5G part and put it somewhere else or in your pocket, that's what usually most laptop makers think. It will be a push because everybody somehow thinks it's going to be this like world where you're always mobile and on your laptop. So we need integrated 5G into our laptops. I'm not convinced consumers care because I don't want to pay my carrier for it, and that's what most people think. They don't want to pay for it, so I don't think it's ever going to work out for consumers until carriers don't want to charge you that premium. I certainly want to pay for it, you know.
Oh, you're muted, Brad. Yeah. All right. Two more fun questions, then we'll get out of here.
Well, wait. Let me pose this to you. What would Elena do? Elena would not pay for that 5G. So give me that money somewhere else. WWAD.
Well, like we were talking about, you can hear me now.
Yes.
All right. We were talking about earlier the ARM Qualcomm laptops. Like that's one of the features of those. You know, they all have connectivity and they all have long battery lives. So if you're interested in that, you know, that's a selling point for those ARM laptops.
Yeah. And those are mostly the pitch there is for corporate because I will tell you, as much as I bag on Qualcomm parts, it's actually not bad in Office. If you're going to stick to those applications that are optimized for it, it's very competitive with low TDP Intel and low TDP Intel parts. I will tell you, it's actually pretty close. So, but I don't think most people want that.
Okay, couple fun ones. We'll get out of here. CMC Knight, friend of the show, asked this way early at the pre-show when you were talking about Big Lebowski. Said, if Gordon is Donnie, then is Adam Patrick Murphy one of the German nihilists? If so, how does he keep the marmot from BB?
He is wearing his black shirt.
All black today, yeah, except for my
Yeah.
boots, I guess.
It might be. Then who is Brad and Elena?
I don't know.
Are there like, does everybody fit? All I just know is I got yelled. For people who don't know, before this started, I realized this morning because I walked into the kitchen bleary-eyed at 7 a.m. and tried to inject myself into a conversation between my wife and my son, and I got yelled at essentially by, like Donnie gets yelled at by Walter because I don't know what's going on and you're just kind of screwing it up. So shut the F up, Donnie, is basically the phrase that would have been used on me. It wasn't used, but...
Starscream over on Discord asks a thematic question for the month of October, and one that I like. What is your personal favorite horror film?
Oh, that's the thing. That's
The
hands
Thing
down.
is good. Oh, The Thing
Like,
is good.
I mean, I liked Alien. I watched it once. I've not gone back to watch that in the whatever 35 years since it has come out. I've watched The Thing many, many more times.
The Thing is good.
The Thing is
The
like,
Thing is real. I love practical effects.
oh,
They just don't make it like they used to.
that is just awesome.
Yeah.
What about you two?
Brad.
Oh, The Thing is right up there. The Thing is right up there. I wouldn't even think it in that direction, but now that you said it, I can't unthink it. But as far as traditional horror goes, call me basic, but I've always really loved Blair Witch. Like that whole found footage kind of thing. I thought the story didn't make any sense, but I thought they did a great job with the atmosphere. And that's what I'm looking for in a horror thing. I'm not big into the gore fest like Saw and stuff like that. I like genuine tension and stuff like that. And I think Blair Witch did really well with that. Same with The Ring, the major ones. But The Thing rocks my socks.
The Thing is so good.
I've never seen Blair Witch, but I want to ask this question, Brad. At any point during the horrible things that were happening, did they consider not recording it? Like maybe we should try to call the
It's
police.
not like it was recording the whole time.
It's not?
No.
Yeah, but why would you ever turn it on? Somebody's trying to kill you. Believe me.
You should watch it. It's
Okay.
yeah.
I'm going to watch it, but I've been using some AI to stabilize the frames first before I can watch
There
it.
you go. Did I ever tell you my Blair Witch story? That's a good story. The first time I saw Blair Witch, I worked at the theater. I'll say real quick. I worked at the theater. I was the guy who cleaned up after people would go in
my
the theater.
God.
That was
Sorry,
fun, actually. I had a lot of good.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, it was fun. Anyway, the projectionists, they were all the film buff, nerdy people. And, this is before, this is late 90s, so before internet was widely available. So we always turned to them for information of new movies coming out because they were kind of in the know. Blair Witch hit. Nobody had heard anything about it. Even the projectionists. The only thing a projectionist could tell us was that, hey, it debuted at Sundance, and then they picked it up for wider release. We think this is real footage. So when I watched that the first time in the theater, I was under the impression that was real footage. I saw it opening night, and it rocked my world. I was like, why would they show this? And then, it wasn't a couple of days later, then I was reading the paper, and they were like, oh, hey, this isn't real. And I was like, oh, geez. All right. That was intense. So that's
But the fact that, I saw it in the early days, so I saw it in that same sort of a window. The fact that you could even just be like, is this real? Is this not real? I think speaks volumes about how good the movie is.
Yeah, it's fun. The Shining. I've mentioned that before. That's just my number one. Also, I just got the new 4K Blu-ray version, which they did a new film transfer. Oh,
Really?
oh yeah, it looks real good. A new grading on it too. It's man, because I had the previous Blu-ray version. This is like Lindsay, my wife, was like, really? We already own it on Blu-ray, and I was like, yeah, but we should do this one. And I tell you what, even she was like, okay, I could tell the difference. That was a good transfer. So yeah, pretty awesome.
Wow. There are some other really great suggestions here because, like, I didn't even think about this, but yeah, like Poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's an all-time great horror movie. And then Night of the Living Dead. I will tell you, my parents, there was a party at our house, and they let the kids watch TV, and we watched Night of the Living Dead. Believe me.
Ooh.
That was not good for the next, I don't know.
I
25
preferred, which was it? Dawn of the Dead, the one in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
I preferred that one, but it's like Alien and Aliens. That one's less of a horror movie. So
Wait, the original one, the sort of like campy.
the
70s?
original one.
Oh,
yeah, not the remake. I
I
saw
really
the remake
like
too,
that.
but I preferred the original Dawn of the Dead.
I used to go to the mall where that was filmed in. 'Cause it was
Really?
around Pittsburgh, yeah. So
That's cool.
All I know is like I wasn't really into the zombies. Like, look at me. Do you think I can run fast for sustained more than 25 feet? If I were a zombie, I could suddenly now be Usain Bolt. Like suddenly like running at 45 miles an hour. It doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
Oh, and Jaws.
I love horror movies. We
The
watched way too
Exorcist?
many. Yeah, I mean Friday the 13th is definitely one of my favorite like longer series. I'm sorry, Nightmare. Oh my God, Nightmare on Elm Street. Wow, not Friday the 13th. I'm a Freddy guy, not a Jason guy.
Do you consider? I see Lost Boys on there. I'm not sure I would
Yeah,
consider
no,
that.
that's pretty frightening. A lot of practical effects.
That was more like an
I-
MTV music video. I think I did enjoy it.
Mm.
I wouldn't
Amityville?
necessarily consider it horror, but I consider it horror themed. Like it's got the dark overtones, it's tense at points. I really like Lost Boys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Especially the Frog Brothers. I mean, that made the whole movie for me. So
Yeah, for sure. Okay, my last question, not a real question, but Ziv, friend of the show, Ziv says, is Macworld attempting a hostile takeover of PC World? Blink 3 times if you're being held against your will, Gordon. I will send reinforcements.
no, actually, not at all.
He just did it 3.
No,
he did 1 and then
I'm
quick 2
trying
ones.
not to blink.
No, I saw you do it 3 times.
Actually, I will say the Macworld people are awesome people. Really respect them. So
No, for
Yeah,
sure.
they're all super cool. If they tried, we could hit them with our great big honking
Actually,
Core i9 and RTX 3080 laptops anyway.
Actually, you know what? We should have Roman. We should have Roman on next week. I don't know when they can talk about it or when they're getting it in, but yeah, I think it'd be fun to have Roman on. He's been on before, tangentially. I know he watches sometimes. So.
I've always wanted to do a debate with a hardcore, dyed in the wool believer, total 100% believers.
Yeah.
And as you heard me say earlier, if the new MacBook Pro 16 or 14 works for you, please buy it because that's what you should do. But to me, a true over the top person would never say that. They would always just continue to change. Like, whoa, what about this? What about that? What about this? Jesus.
Okay, let's get out of here, shall we? Let's go get some rainy lunch.
Yes. Check back next week for your fix of PC Talk on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or Stitcher, and please do leave us a review. Every time you do, they make a remake of a Thing movie. So, actually, did they? Prequel.
Please don't remake the Thing.
The video game was good too.
Oh, yeah. And the
I
comics.
forgot about that.
The comics are great, too. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@pcworld.com. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Sharkus.
Adios.
And Adam Patrick Murray's going to hit the off switch.
Oh, and Cadorius Technologies just gave us $5 super chat. Thanks so much. Said I won a Newegg Shuffle, got an EVGA 3070 Ti, but I wanted a Founders Edition 3080. Is it worth keeping? Should he do it?
If you can find a Founders Edition 3080, I would get that and then flip to 3070 Ti. It is a little bit more powerful, but 3070 Ti will be great. So don't bum out about it.
Cool. There you go. Boom. Bye.